ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you two things. A, the Bears still suck, and football is back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. Football back, baby. Let's go. Hello, folks. Welcome to Jeremy Hadler's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jeremy Hadler. And today I'm going to be discussing the NFC stadium predictions for this upcoming season for the 2024 and 2025 season. The way I'll be going about this is going through the NFC West, through the South, through the North, through the East. In the next episode, which is going to be the AFC predictions. Before I start, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you've not done so. We would appreciate it. And once again, the way I'm going about this is I'm going to be talking about the teams and giving the case of what the record will be and how I see they will project in this upcoming season and what they did in this offseason to convince me to make them either go way better of what they're supposed to be or way worse. That includes some teams, like the Bears, just kidding. But that's going to be some teams out here, ladies and gentlemen. But let's start off with the NFC West. Last place I have is the Seattle Seahawks finishing 6-11, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, 6-11. Couple reasons. A, Pete Carroll retired. They don't have the same head coach. Geno Smith was not the same guy. They traded for Sam Howell. They signed Jerome Baker, Jonathan Hankins. I think it's going to be a rebuilding year for them because they're just trying to figure out the whole key concepts of where this head coach is, especially when they had Russell Wilson. They were right there, and they just could not go far in the playoffs and not do that well. I do think their defense is going to get a bit better. I mean, they did lose one of their best linebackers, but I do think their defensive scheme is going to be pretty good with their new head coach, Mike McDonald, and I like him a lot. So that's pretty good news there for the Seahawks. Offensively, they still need to fix a couple things. They do have great receivers. Running back, Kenneth Walker, I like him a lot. The big issue to me is going to be the quarterback with Geno Smith. How well can he play? Because he was hurt last year and was not doing that great. Secondly, how's the offensive line? Because that's been a big issue for the Seahawks forever. The Seahawks offensive line has been a big problem with them. So we got to see how that plays out. But I just don't see the Seahawks getting to where they're going to be of making a playoff contention because I think they're going to lose a lot of games, and they're just trying to figure out what they have in them and try to figure out how they go throughout the season. So I'm going to have the Seahawks last place here in the NFC West, 6-11, last place here. I got Seattle right here. Take that, Seattle. I hate you. In third place, I got is the Arizona Cardinals, finishing at 7-10. Big things I like about what Arizona did this offseason was they drafted Marcin Harrison Jr., best receiver in the draft. They signed Sean Murphy-Bunting and Nichols, Mac Wilson. Big question, though, for the Cardinals is going to be Kyler Murray. Can he return to form? That is going to be my big question. We don't know how well he's going to be after suffering that injury, but how long is that rust going to last? That's the big question. I'm going to give the Cardinals 7-10 here just because I don't know how well he's going to be, because easily the Cardinals could do so well, and I could definitely see it. But again, they have a very tough schedule, especially when you're an NFC West team, and you're playing the AFC East and the NFC North. That is a bit tough for the Cardinals, so they have a grueling schedule for them. Then another player I really like a lot on this Cardinals team is Trey McBride, which if you're going to go for a fantasy, watch out because he's being taken like the first or third tight end in like the fantasy football drafts recently. So stay up for that, folks. Stay up for that, especially my league mates. Well, we'll see how that goes in my league, but just watch out for him. But I got the Cardinals here at 7-10. I just think that they're not quite there yet. I just need to see where Kyler Murray is because if they can overcome these opponents and Kyler Murray's back to form, then I can see the Cardinals be a playoff contending team. Definitely can see that. The defense does question me still a bit, even with Jonathan Gannon as your head coach, which, good golly, he's a bit questionable there too, folks, for that job. But I got the Cardinals here finishing in third place at 7-10. Second place, number 2. This was a tough one because I definitely see this team rising up. But I just unfortunately couldn't be there to put them on the top of this division because it's one of the best divisions in football. That is the Los Angeles Rams. Los Angeles Rams, I got them finishing at 12-5. They lost in the wild card round last year against the Detroit Lions. Revenge game for Matthew Stafford. Unfortunately, it was not a revenge game for him. It was a revenge game for Jared Goff, who got his revenge against the Rams in that playoff game. But I did like the Rams all season a lot. They signed Jonah Jackson for their offensive line, signed Cameron Curl from Washington, Darius Williams, Kevin Dotson, Colby Parkinson. They drafted Jared Verse. They drafted Blake Corum. They also did sign Tre'Davious White to a one-year deal. That's not much saying because he's dealing with a lot of injuries. He's not the same CB that he once was when he was an all-pro guy. Big loss, though, for the Rams was Aaron Donald retired. That was a big loss, so that is heavily going to hurt them on the defensive line. But I still think that they're going to be pretty good, though, 12-5, because they got Kyron Williams. They got Cooper Kupp still. Pua Nakua, guy who pretty much won all fantasy football leagues last year for a lot of people. Matthew Stafford was hurt a lot last year. I do think he'll have a healthy season. And with Jonah Jackson signing him, I think that's going to protect him a bit better. It's going to help the run game out. It's going to help Matthew Stafford be more healthy. So I think this Rams team is going to be pretty ferocious out here. You got to watch out for them. But looking at their schedule, folks, they got the Lions, again, revenge game in Detroit, where it was last year. So that's a pretty good week 1 game. They got the Cardinals, who I think they'll beat. They got the 49ers. I think they'll split that. Packers, also a tough game I see for them. It's the Dolphins, but I think that's like a twisted turn. I think the Rams can overcome that. Then they got the Eagles, which I think that's going to be a tough one for them. They got the Bills, the 49ers, and the Jets. That's 3 tough opponents 3 weeks in a row. So that's a tough stretch for them right then and there. Because I mentioned before, they got the Eagles before that, the Dolphins. That 3-game stretch is really going to determine it for me for the Rams. But I think they're going to do pretty well. And I have high expectations for this team. So I'm putting them at 12-5. I really like what they did this offseason. If Aaron Donald's still here, then I definitely put them way up there for the Super Bowl and division. But unfortunately, I'm not going to put them there. So I got the Rams finishing in second place in the NFC West. To round out first place in the NFC West is the San Francisco 49ers, finishing at 13-4. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they have a tough schedule, but knowing what the 49ers can do, they can overcome a lot of things. They lost in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Big issue in that was they didn't know the overtime rules, because that is twice now for Kyle Shanahan to lose in the Super Bowl. In overtime, Atlanta Falcons Patriots, the 28-3 choke. That ended in overtime with Tom Brady hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. Guess who's the offensive coordinator for the Falcons? Kyle Shanahan. So this is a repeat of what he has gone through of that. The nice move I did like, though, for the 49ers this offseason was they signed Leonard Floyd. That was a good signing. They did get Jordan Elliott, who I like. Devondre Campbell from the Packers. Now, Devondre Campbell, he's not the same guy he once was because he'd deal with a lot of injuries, but he could have a solid season. Big loss for them was Eric Armstead. That's a big loss. He went to Jacksonville. And the big question, as of right now with the San Francisco 49ers, is Brandon Ayuk. Will he get traded? Will he go to Pittsburgh, Cleveland? That's going to be the big question. Me personally, I just don't think he's going to get traded because the 49ers have dealt with this before. Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, George Kittle. They have dealt with this multiple times, and they will find a way to get the deal done. And my question for Brandon is, why would you leave a team that you just went to Super Bowl with and has one of the best chances to go back to Super Bowl and win it? And I think that 49ers are going to have a good season. I really think they are. Looking at their schedule, which is tough. They got the Jets. Split with the Rams, I definitely see it because they always go back and forth every time I'm watching them. Then you got the Super Bowl rematch. Kansas City Chiefs at San Francisco. They got the Bucs. I think they'll still overcome that. Then they got the Packers. This is going to be a tough game. I can see both ways you win this. 49ers have had the edge on the Packers, but the Packers almost beat the 49ers last year in the postseason. Then the 49ers got the Bills in Buffalo, which depending on the weather, I think the 49ers could win it if it's not super cold. Then they got the Lions and the Dolphins. I could see them losing to the Lions as well, like Green Bay. Dolphins, I don't know about that because it's very late in the season in Miami, so you're not dealing with the cold weather like you would be for my team. But I really think this 49ers team is going to be pretty good once again and try to make their way back into the Super Bowl and win it. And the clock is very ticking. They're slowly heading down, folks. They're slowly going to head down because when we're looking at the 49ers here, a lot of guys are going up in age, starting to decline very soon. Great question is going to be is how many years does CMC have left in the tank? Same with George Kittle, Deebo. I mean, they're all still young, but they're like 28 and 28. That's the prime of your career pretty much. So once you get in the 30s, they're not lasting long. They're starting to decline a bit more. So that's going to be the big question though for me. But I got the 49ers finishing out here, taking the NFC West crown here for this division. Let's move on to the NFC South, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get this over quick because this is one of the most boring divisions in the NFL, I will say. Last place, I think we all know, is the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to be nice to them and give them a 5-12 season. I'm not going to go to schedule because we all know where they're at. They're just not there. They did have a new coach, which they hired Dave Canales. Nice thing I did like what they did in this offseason was they addressed the offensive line with Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis to give protection for Bryce Young and actually develop a run game. They signed Sean Robinson, defensive tackle. They also signed linebacker Josie Jewell. They acquired Deontay Johnson. I think that's an underrated move. I think he's going to be a pretty good receiver weapon for them and threat on the offensive side. Another thing they did was trade away Brian Burns. I think Brian Burns is a great guy, but I think it was worth it for the Panthers to get a good trade value out of it, especially when he's on a contract year and he's going to leave. They knew he was going to leave, so you might as well get some value out of him. And they got pretty good value out of him. I really like that. Again, it's going to be all about Bryce Young and this new head coach because we don't know how this Panthers team is going to stir around because it's not looking good. Even defensive side, it's really not looking good for them either. So I got the Panthers finishing in dead last year of the NFC South. Third place I got is the New Orleans Saints finishing at 8-9. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 8-9. Because I think the Saints are going to struggle back and forth a couple times because they have a bit tough schedule here. They released Michael Thomas, which that was pretty good because Michael Thomas was not the same guy he once was. They did extend the Honey Badger, which I like a lot. They also extended Warner. They really can't do a lot of moves because of the cap space that they were in, which was terrible. They still have Derek Carr's the quarterback, but the question is going to be, can they win? Can they win more games with Dennis Allen? They could, but I don't think it's going to happen because you got two other teams up there who I'm going to talk about later. They're pretty good. So I think the Saints, they're not going to have a pretty good season. I just think they're going to be disappointed, especially when you have Derek Carr as your quarterback because he's the most average quarterback in the NFL, ladies and gentlemen. I just don't see the Saints being that threat. I just don't see them. They're just They're mid to me. So I'm going to put the Saints 8-9 here. Third place, ladies and gentlemen. Second place. This team was pretty good last year, and I had to give respect to them, and I'm giving respect to them now. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finishing at 10-7. They lost to the Detroit Lions in the divisional round. They extended Baker Mayfield, which absolutely deserved a contract extension. Also extended a couple other guys. Mike Evans, who's going to definitely finish and retire as a Buck, which is pretty awesome. They also extended Winfield, who's one of the best defensive backs and safeties in the league because he can play both sides a bit. Then I was a big fan of their first-round draft pick, Graham Barn. They also signed Jordan Whitehead, and they released Shaq Barrett, which he retired now, folks. So he was pretty good for his time, but he was getting up there in age, so it's time for the Bucs. But they have a pretty good defense once again. Offensively, I mean, it's just going to be about can they get it going again? Like, can we see a consistent, can Baker perform again? That's my question for him because I got Todd Bowles and I like Todd Bowles now. When he was with the Jets, he sucked as the head coach. But with the Bucs, he's done a pretty good job. I got to give congrats to the Bucs where they were last season. I think they're still going to have a solid season, but I think they just come up a little bit short, folks. It's really about can Baker perform well again? Can he perform well again? That's my question for Baker and for the Bucs. That's my big question. But I got the Bucs finishing here at 10-7, ladies and gentlemen. And then to take the crown, the NFC South is the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons. I got them 11-6 here, ladies and gentlemen. Big reason why I'm going to put them here is because they drafted Michael Penix Jr., one of the best quarterbacks. We don't know how well he's going to be, guys. They literally drafted him, try to do another Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Jordan Love, try to copy that for him. Well, we don't know how it's going to go because they made a bigger move this offseason. They signed Kirk Cousins. Yeah, they signed Kirk Cousins to a mega deal. And by the time Kirk Cousins' deal is over, Michael Penix Jr. will be 28. That's not pretty good. That's not good, folks. And the big question is going to be on Kirk Cousins. How well does he perform after the big injury? How well does he perform off that? Because we don't know how well that's going to be. But I really like the offensive weapons they got. They got Kyle Pitts. They got Bijan Robinson. They got Drake London. They signed Darnell Mooney, which I like a lot. That's a pretty good move for them. So the offensive weapons are doing pretty well with. The offensive line, I think they have a pretty good offensive line. It was just really about the coach because they just got a new coach. They got Raheem Morris from the Los Angeles Rams, their offensive coordinator for the Rams with Sean McVay, which I think is going to be pretty good. Falcons offensively, pretty good. And they don't have Arthur Smith anymore, which Arthur Smith was terrible last year. He was very bad. So I really like the Atlanta Falcons where they're at right now. But the big question on the defensive wise is who else is going to be pretty good because they do have AJ Terrell. They have Jesse Bates. I like that in the secondary. Defensive line worries me a little bit. I know they drafted the defensive line in the draft, which is pretty good, but I don't know about the linebackers. I don't know how well the edge rusher is going to be. That's a big question for me. But I really like this Atlanta Falcons team a lot, besides the Michael Penix pick, which they could have gotten Dallas Turner. But we don't know how long Kirk Cousins is going to play. We really don't know, so that's the question to me. But again, I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons here to win the NFC South, take the crown, 11-6, book it. Let's go to the NFC North, my division. We'll get to the NFC East. Save the best for last. NFC North, the king of the North. Last place. I think everyone knows who it's going to be. I'm going to say it simply, is the Minnesota Vikings. 7-10. Just to be nice with them, because I hate them so much. What happened to the Minnesota Vikings? They let Kirk Cousins go to the Atlanta Falcons, I just mentioned. They let Daniil Hunter go to the Houston Texans. They did sign Blake Cashman and Grenier from the Houston Texans. I like those two moves a lot, but I think they overpaid Grenier a little bit because I don't think he's going to get the expectation that he's supposed to get. They also did sign Sam Darnold. That's going to be their QB1 for the first couple weeks. And then they're going to have their other guy come up, who they drafted in the NFL draft, which was J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, he is from Michigan, won the title with Michigan. Then they also got Justin Jefferson, amazing weapon. They also have Jordan Addison, but again, Jordan Addison is probably going to be suspended a couple games. They did sign Aaron Jones. That hurt. You had to do that to be Minnesota Vikings to do it far. And Greg Jennings. Fine with that. I miss Aaron Jones. I'm not going to like seeing him in a purple uniform, but guys just had to do that. But I also do like, and I think this is the big thing for the Minnesota Vikings from their past draft, which was drafting Dallas Turner. That was a big move. I like the Dallas Turner pick way more than J.J. McCarthy. I think it's a rebuilding year for the Minnesota Vikings. We'll see where they're at coming by the end of the season. But I think defensively, they're still a bit concerning me. Offensively, it's just really going to depend on how well Sam Darnold does. It's really going to depend on that. And with Kevin O'Connell. But I got the Minnesota Vikings finishing here at 7-10. Third place, also finishing at 7-10, is the Bears. The Bears, Chicago Bears. The Bears still suck, but we got to give some praise to them for finishing 7-10. And also got to give a little respect to the arch rivals here of what they did this offseason, which was trade away Justin Fields, even though the fans didn't want that, but it was the right move. Drafted Caleb Williams. They fleeced the Carolina Panthers. Did they finally find the quarterback? That's the great question, because the last time they had a good quarterback was Jay Cutler, and he was not that good. I miss those Jay Cutler days. But they did get some offensive weapons to help Caleb Williams. They got Rome Odunze, good wide receiver, new offensive coordinator, trade for Keenan Allen. I like that move bid for the value that they got out of him. Even though it was a high contract, I like the move. They signed DeAndre Swift. Not a fan of that because I just don't think he's going to live with the potential that he is with his contract. They signed Kevin Byard. Eagle fans were not happy with him, so he was not that great either. They did sign DJ Moore to a 4-year extension. So they gave him a lot of offensive weapons. So this is going to be a different offensive team. Way better, probably. Defensively, I think it's still a bit concerning. I mean, they did get Jalen Johnson to an extension, which I like that move for them. But they were pretty good the last couple of weeks in the football season, especially heading towards the end of the regular season. They were pretty good. But can they be consistent? And can they actually strive and have good team? That's the question. I just think it's also kind of rebuilding year, like with the Minnesota Vikings. They're just trying to figure out what they're trying to do here. They're trying to figure out, what they have out of Caleb Williams, and can they actually do good? That's the question to me with the Bears. Can they actually do good? Because, as they always have, they still suck. But I got to give praise a little bit to the Bears of what the moves they did this offseason, especially the draft. But I do like the moves that the Bears made otherwise of trading away Justin Fields, getting Caleb Williams, and Rome Odunze, and a new offensive coordinator. I got the Bears finishing at 7-10. Now, time to get down to business here because those two teams were rebuilding teams and are still rebuilding. This is a two-head horse race, folks, for me in this division, between my team, the Green Bay Packers, and the Detroit Lions. Both teams lost to the 49ers in the playoffs last year. Packers lost in the divisional round. Lions lost in the NFC Championship. Both of our teams were so close to beating the 49ers. Lions choked way more. It's going to come down to the last game these two teams play against each other because I think they both have tough schedules. I think it's going to really come down to that. And they made very similar offseason moves a bit here. But for me, and what my gut is telling me, the Detroit Lions finishing in second place at 11-6. But let's talk about the moves that the Lions made that I like a lot. They extended Jared Goff. He deserved to get paid. He was one of the best quarterbacks statistically in the NFL. So I give him praise there. He definitely deserved it. I don't know if he got paid that much. They did extend Amon St. Brown, which I like that a lot. I love watching him play, especially when my team goes up against him, one of my favorite receivers. They also extended Penei Sewell, re-signed Glasgow. They traded for Carlton Davis. That is an underrated move. They also had DJ Reader to help that defensive line. They lost Jonah Jackson and CJ Gardner-Johnson, which CJ Gardner-Johnson didn't do much for the Lions. He really didn't because he played hurt. Losing Jonah Jackson does hurt them a bit. That is one thing I did not like that the Lions did was they let him go because I liked him with the Lions. I think the Lions, to me, they're back to where they are. They had a winning season. They made the playoffs and had a playoff win in forever. So I got to give praise to them, what they did. But they did keep Dan Campbell. He was very aggressive. That cost them a couple games, and I think that's the reason what cost them especially against the 49ers in the game. They kept their offensive corner, Ben Johnson, which that was a pretty good, him staying there helps out the Lions a lot. They also kept Aaron Glenn, their defense corner, who was all right. I mean, he had good moments with the Lions, but from what I've heard from Lions fans, they didn't like him, so they're just a bit off and on, but he did overall a solid job with them. I just think the Lions are going to be pretty good. I really think they are 11-6. I mean, they could go way better. With this tough schedule, I think it's going to be a tough game for them. I can see the Lions go better. I really can see even have a better record than 11-6, but given what the schedule is for them, I think it's going to be a bit tough for them. So personally, I'm going to give them 11-6 right now in second place. I think they're definitely a playoff threat, and they're definitely in the Super Bowl contention. So I got to give praise to the Lions. I don't give praise to my arch rivals, which the Lions, they definitely deserve praise. For what they've gone through for his last 30 years, I mean, they sucked a lot, and it's been way worse for them, but you got to give praise to them, especially when they haven't been good and they actually won. Like, I don't mind the Lions that much as compared to the other teams in this division. And so to take the crown, NFC North is my team, the Green Bay Packers, finishing at 12-5. Yes, I have high expectations on this team this year. Given what they did last year, which was remarkable, and nobody thought they could do it, which was ridiculous by being the first 7 seed to beat a 2nd seed in the playoffs. Lost the 49ers individual round, but they were very close to beating the 49ers. So that says something about that. And they had a pretty good offseason. I really like what they did. But let's talk about their schedule, and then we'll go back. For schedule-wise, I think it's not that bad. Week 1, I think, will be tough when they're in Brazil against Philadelphia. Colts, it depends where it could be because we don't know how well the Colts are going to be with Anthony Richardson. And then you got the Los Angeles Rams. That's a tough part. You got Houston Texans. You got the Lions. I think they'll split that up. 49ers, definitely a tough one. But look at the moves they made this offseason. They brought in new defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, who is the head coach at Boston College. So it'll be interesting to see how well that transition goes for the Packers defense because he's bringing his philosophy from where the Packers have been known to go for a 3-4 defense, and now they're going to go 4-3. So it'll be different scheme-wise, and we'll see how Jeff Hafley goes from the college football to the professional football league. We'll see how that goes. They added Josh Jacobs, which I did not think was going to happen. Packers never spend money on running backs in the free agency market, especially. My favorite pickup from this offseason was the number 1 free agent I wanted badly, which was Xavier McKinley. He reminds me of the young Charles Woodson. Could play the role that he had in Green Bay when he was with us. Big move that the Packers did was pay Jordan Love. They extended him. He's the highest paid quarterback as of right now when I'm recording this. Was it overpay? Yeah, it's going to be a little bit overpay, but you had no choice. You pretty much had to pay the guy because look at the sample size, and he put up elite numbers. He was arguably the best QB the last 8 weeks of football. First couple weeks, he showed promise too. Now, it wasn't that great because he struggled a bit and back and forth like a roller coaster, and that was also the Packers last season. Went up, down, they had their highs, they had their lows, kept going back and forth. Fixed the defense a little bit, I will say. I mean, I just mentioned Xavier McKinley, but their draft, I was a big fan of their draft too. Arguably got the best linebacker and arguably the best safety in the draft. Javon Bullard, the safety, and Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker. Very excited to see what this team does. Now, does this put them in Super Bowl contention? Yes. Could I see him go to the Super Bowl? It depends on a lot of things. Jordan Love, Jeff Hafley, kicker. So those are 3 big things for me. Then going back to the offense side of the ball, I really like how all the pieces are set up with Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs. We lost Aaron Jones, which it was the right move for the Packers because he kept getting injured. Packers got so many offensive weapons on the receiver and tight end. And that could fill like receiver 1 because the Packers don't have receiver 1 if you ask Smile Flair because he'll throw up every time he hears that. These guys all come together and they don't have a lot of ego. They go with each other. So that's great to see there. They just got to get the flow of things. And this year, I think the offense is going to take another step up. But going back again to Super Bowl contention and Super Bowl talk for the Packers. The one big thing that has been crucial, and I will say this has been the occurrence for the Packers for as long as I've been a Packer fan, ever since they won the Super Bowl last time, is expectations. When this team does not have expectations, they do pretty well. When this team does have expectations, they don't do well. They always choke up in the playoffs and miss out and go into the Super Bowl. We saw that with Aaron Rodgers over the years so many times. That's been a big question is, how does Jordan Love and this Packers team and Matt LaFleur respond to expectations? Because they got to win, and you guys see where it goes there. So I'm going to take my team here for right now, but expectations are a big question to me with this Packers team. How well can they do against taking against the best teams in the NFL. How well are they going to go against them? But I got the Packers here, 12-5, taking the crown NFC North. And now we move on to our last division in the NFC, which is the NFC East. Last place, I think it's obvious here, and I'm going to put them here, is the New York Giants, finishing at 6-11. Let's talk about the reasons why. And this team is going to be very bad. Lost Saquon Barkley, your best offensive player. Lost Xavier McKinley. Thank you. Appreciate that, Giants. Nice move I did like was they trade for Brian Burns. However, they gave a lot of draft capital and paid him a lot, so that doesn't help. Got a good defensive line, I'll give him that. Drafted Malik Neighbors, I like that. Darren Waller retired. They signed John Runyon. He's all right. And you're stuck with Daniel Jones. You're paying that man $45 million a season. That man should not get $45 million a season. He shouldn't. But the New York Giants, they are not that great of a football team with the offense and weapons they have, and the offense line always banged up, and we saw Saquon get banged up a lot last year. Daniel Jones is not going to be the same, so that's a big issue on my end for that side. On the defensive side, I really like the defensive line. I think it's going to be pretty good. I don't like the linebackers. I don't like the safeties. I don't like the secondary really at all. Only the defensive line is really what sticks out to me, and this Giants team is not that great. We're seeing a Hard Knocks. They are not looking pretty good. So I'm going to make it very sweet and short here. Giants, dead last. Going to be one of the worst teams in football. Booking that, and that is going to be payback for last time I did this on video. I was wrong about the Giants, fortunately, but they helped me beat the Vikings in the playoffs, so I thank them for that. Third place. I think it's also obvious too, but I got the Washington Commanders finishing at 8-9. Yes, 8-9. I like their team a bit more this year. I just don't think they got a winning record yet because I think they're just going to fall short in a Week 17 game. I think that's going to be a tough spot for them. But the nice things I like about it was they fired Ron Rivera. They bring in Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator from the Cowboys, which is going to be Dan Quinn's first time head coaching since he was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, which we all know what happened there. He choked in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots with Kyle Shanahan. They drafted Jaden Daniels. I like him a lot. They signed Armstrong from the Cowboys. They signed Austin Eckler, who's not the same. Bobby Wagner, I think, is a very underrated move. Tyler Baez and Frankie Louvu. Where I see with this Washington Commanders team, I think the defense is going to be pretty solid, especially with Dan Quinn. Offensively, it's really going to – you got to see how the motions play out. They do have good receivers. They got Dotson. They got Scary Terry McLaurin. Running back-wise, I mean, Austin Eckler, he's declined and is not the same. That is definitely going to hurt the Commanders a little bit. But I think the offense, it's going to start picking up, but it's not going to be very good. It'll be just average is my best say. For them, it really depends on how Jane Daniels plays out and how the whole team plays out, really, because I just don't see with the offensive line, it's not that great. It's a little bit better than the Giants' offensive line. That's saying something. So that's a concern to me. And it's just that chemistry. They all got to develop that chemistry. So that's me another question to me is see where is Washington's offense going here. Even though they lost a couple guys from the defense like Kareem Cool, I really like the defense still, especially with Dan Quinn. So that I would get appreciated for. Second place, I got America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, finishing at 11-6. What happened to the Cowboys last year? Oh, right. They lost to my team in the first round, who they are heavily favored. Oh, that's fun. That's just great. Jimmy Johnson knows very well what happened. What happened to them in this offseason, ladies and gentlemen? Well, they lost Dan Quinn to the Commanders, who became the head coach. They lost their defensive coordinator. They brought Mike Zimmer in. They drafted Tyler Guyton, an offensive lineman. They lost Tyron Smith, Tony Pollard, Armstrong, Tyler Beyonce. And most of those guys went with Dan Quinn to the Commanders. So that's good for the Commanders side, as I just mentioned before. Tyler Guyton, he's good. He has good potential. The defense, it's still going to be good. But the question is going to be how good is it going to be because they lost some guys. The secondary is going to be pretty good still. The linebacker got Micah Parsons, obviously. They let Leon Van Der Esch go. Defensive line just worries me a little bit if I'm a Cowboys fan, which I'm not, but that worries me a little bit. Offensively, they really need more weapons because they don't even know who the running back is. They let Tony Pollard go, and they're still trying to figure out who the heck the running back's going to be. Could be Ezekiel because they brought him back. Could be Rico Dowell. I don't know. That's my big question is the running game. Then the offense weapons, the receiver and tight end core. That worries me a little bit because obviously you got Ferguson and you got CeeLand. Two good picks right there. Then after that, it's not great. Really need wide receivers. They really need a bit more wide receivers. And Dak Prescott, the man's great in the regular season. But when you get to the postseason, and we've seen this so many times, he does not do well in high-pressure situations, especially against the 49ers and the Packers in the playoffs, which has been the past couple of years. He doesn't do it. He can't get the job done in the playoffs. And you just get to see Jerry Jones so mad, especially in the press box every year. Always gets to know it and always says the Cowboys go into the Super Bowl, like the fans always say, which has not happened. And the last time you guys went to the Super Bowl, I wasn't even born. Yeah, last time we went to the Super Bowl, I wasn't even born. That's how long ago it was. Again, regular season, they're going to be good. But when you get in the postseason, it's always they're going to lose. They lose every single year in the first round. I mean, if we want to look at this schedule real quick for the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, you got Cleveland, which I think they get beat. Ravens, I think they'll lose too. Got the Lions, that's going to be a tough game. You got the 49ers, Falcons, Eagles, Texans. That's a 5-game stretch there. I think it's going to be very tough for them. Also got the Bengals, got the Bucs, and you got the Eagles again. So again, the tough road for the Cowboys is going to be the Lions, the 49ers, the Falcons, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. That's 5 games in a row. And that is going to hurt them. That will really determine the Cowboys and how well they're going to be. But I just think for the Cowboys' sake that they're going to be good, 11-6, finish second place, because whoever wins the division every year in the NFC East never wins it the next year. It's always complete opposite, always changes it, and has changed ever since the Eagles lost the Patriots the first time this Super Bowl, which is incredible to see because I didn't think that could last long of a different person never repeat the same division, which is rare in this division. But got the Cowboys finishing at 11-6, second place here. Then to take the crown in the NFC East is the Philadelphia Eagles at 12-5, ladies and gentlemen. 12-5. I got them here. What happened to them last year? They collapsed pretty hard. They were looking very good and looking like they're going back to the Super Bowl very easily. And then it went all downhill. They lost the Bucs in the playoffs. Jason Kelce retired. Nick Sirianni was not a good relationship with Jalen Hurts. The offensive calls were not great. Same with the defensive coordinators. They traded away Hassan Reddick. They brought back a couple guys who I like, which we'll get down to a bit. But the Eagles had a big chance to get back in the Super Bowl, and they blew it. They blew it pretty hard last year, and that's not great. But let's talk about what they did this offseason because I really like what they did a lot. Saquon Barkley they brought in. They brought a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Got Kelmore, Vic Fangio. We'll see how that goes. They drafted pretty well. They addressed the secondary with Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I like those 2 picks a lot. They signed Bryce Huff, who I think is fine. Devin White, not the same anymore. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, so that concerns me a little bit. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he comes back to the Eagles after the Eagles let him go, which they probably shouldn't have. And then again, they trade Hassan right away. But the Eagles defense, big concerns with me is the linebackers, the secondary are the 2 big things I get really concerned about with the Eagles defense because they cannot tackle. That was a big thing for the Eagles last year. Secondary, specifically the safeties, were not that great either. They kept blowing coverage, just having explosive plays just come out of nowhere. The pass rush, you lost Hassan Reddick, you brought in Bryce Huff, who I think is good, and Vic Fangio is known for that 3-4 defense, which the Eagles are not really a 3-4 defense. They've really been a 4-3 defense with that defensive line because they're really known for having the 4 guys rush at the bottom there. Now the offensive side. I think the offense is one of the best in the league. You still got Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts was not that great last year when he just struggled and he had fumble issues and he kept throwing a lot of interceptions, which is his career high in. He still ran for his 1-yard rushing TDs all the time, especially because of the tush push. But Jason Kelce's not there anymore, which is a big concern to me. Eagles offense plays out because Jason Kelce was a pivotal piece of that offense. So Saquon Barkley is me a nice addition. Got A.J. Brown still and Devontae Smith. I like those 2. Tight end, they have Dallas Goedert still, which is a nice addition there. The only thing concerned to me really is going to be the chemistry, the flow of the offense, and Jalen Hurts. Because I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a pretty good season, but can they get back to it? They were having very high hopes, looking very good, and then all of a sudden they collapsed. The question is going to be of the offensive line just a little bit because of how pivotal the offense is going to be without Jason Kelce. That's going to be a big question to me. Jalen Hurts' leadership, we got to also say because there was a lot of stuff in the locker room that no one was talking about, but it was getting out there of there's a lot of drama in there. And Vic Fangio has also been known enough to give up big explosive plays. He was defensive coordinator in Miami last year. Did not do a good job. Denver, when he was the head coach, not that great either. He was good maybe the first year, but still not great. He's really known for his time with the Bears from I remember as defensive coordinator, and he brought a good defense out of that. But I got the Eagles finishing first place in the NFC East. But that's my video, folks. But before I head out, I will give my playoff seed-wise and who I think is going to make the playoffs. I will not do my playoff predictions, but I will start here for the number 1 seed. Again, it's going to be the 49ers. Number 2 seed, I think it's going to come down to a week 1's game, which is my team versus the Eagles. I think the Packers are going to win that game, so I'm going to slightly give the edge to the Packers, so they'll take the 2nd seed. Then the 3rd seed will be the Philadelphia Eagles. The 4th seed will be the Atlanta Falcons. Number 5 seed, I think it's going to be Los Angeles Rams. The 6th seed, I think, is going to be the Dallas Cowboys, unfortunately. 7th seed, I think it's going to be the Detroit Lions. I think they definitely get in there because a lot of these games to me are going to come down to one game, and it's going to be based off the tiebreakers. So those are going to pivotal me, and that's how I see it again, folks, of my playoff seed, where I got the 49ers number 1, Packers 2, Eagles 3, got the Atlanta Falcons 4, got the Los Angeles Rams, then you got the Dallas Cowboys, and then you got the Detroit Lions. That's my playoff seeds, folks. But again, let me know what you think. Who do you think is taking the crown in each division? Who do you think is making the playoffs? Who do you think is going to get a high seed? Who do you think is going to be very bad? The New York Giants? Let me know in the chat, folks. Let me know in the chat. But that's a wrap for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.